Hello, Year 2 children. It's Mr Yeardsley here at school. I know most of you are at home at the moment, and there's a few of you in class with Miss Hobson this week with our key workers. Do you remember when you were in Year 1 and we were in lockdown and I read a story every day to you? Well, I'm going to do exactly the same now that you're in Year 2, except for I'm going to read a book with quite a few more pages, a longer story, so I'll read a bit of the story every day. And since your topic is movers and shakers, I thought I'd read you a story from a mover and a shaker in the children's book world. The name of the author is Roald Dahl. You might have seen one or two of the films of his stories. You might have seen the story of Fantastic Mr Fox, which I'm going to read in a bit, which is a cartoon story read to you before. And I do know that there was a film on over Christmas about Roald Dahl when he was very, very young, meeting another famous author called Beatrix Potter. I'll read to you Fantastic Mr Fox now. I'll read chapter 1, which is called The Three Farmers. Down in the valley, there were 3 farms. The owners of these farms had done well. They were rich men. They were also nasty men. All 3 of them were about as nasty and mean as any man you could meet. Their names were Farmer Boggis, Farmer Bunce, and Farmer Bean. There we are. Boggis was a chicken farmer. He kept thousands of chickens. He was enormously fat. And this was because he ate 3 boiled chickens smothered with dumplings every day for breakfast, lunch and supper. There he is. Bunce was a duck and goose farmer. He kept thousands of ducks and geese. He was a kind of pot-bellied dwarf. He was so short his chin would have been underwater in the shallow end of any swimming pool in the world. His food was doughnuts and goose livers. He mashed the livers into a disgusting paste and then stuffed the paste into the doughnuts. This diet gave him a tummy ache and a beastly temper. There he is with his doughnuts. Bean was a turkey and apple farmer. He kept thousands of turkeys in an orchard full of apple trees. He never ate any food at all. Instead, he drank gallons of strong cider which he made from the apples in his orchard. He was as thin as a pencil and the cleverest of them all. He's drinking. Boggis and Bunce and Bean, one fat, one short, one lean, these horrible crooks, so different in looks, were none the less equally mean. This is what the children round about used to sing when they saw them. Chapter 2. Mr Fox. On a hill above the valley there was a wood. In the wood was a huge tree. Under the tree there was a hole. In the hole lived Mr Fox and Mrs Fox and their 4 small foxes. Every evening, as soon as it got dark, Mr Fox would say to Mrs Fox, "Well, my darling, what shall it be this time? A plump chicken from Boggis, a duck or a goose from Bunce, or a nice turkey from Bean?" And when Mrs Fox had told him what she wanted, Mr Fox would creep down into the valley in the darkness of the night and help himself. He's talking to Mrs Fox. Boggis and Bunce and Bean knew very well what was going on, and it made them wild with rage. They were not men who liked to give anything away. Less still did they like anything to be stolen from them. So every night each of them would take his shotgun and hide in a dark place somewhere on his own farm, hoping to catch the robber. There's Mr Fox out and about. There they are waiting. But Mr Fox was too clever for them. He always approached a farm with the wind blowing in his face, and this meant that if any man were lurking in the shadows ahead, the wind would carry the smell of that man to Mr Fox's nose from far away. Thus, if Mr Boggis was hiding behind his chicken house number 1, Mr Fox would smell him out from 50 yards off and quickly change direction, heading for chicken house number 4 at the other end of the farm. "Dang and blast that lousy beast!" cried Boggis. "I'd like to rip his guts out," said Bunce. "He must be killed," cried Bean. "But how?" said Boggis. "How on earth can we catch the blighter?" Bean picked his nose delicately with a long finger. "I have a plan," he said. "You've never had a decent plan yet," said Bunce. "Shut up and listen," said Bean. "Tomorrow night we will all hide just outside the hole where the fox lives. We will wait there until he comes out. Then bang! Bang! Bang!" "Very clever," said Bunce. "But first we'll have to find the hole." "My dear Bunce, I've already found it," said the crafty Bean. "It's up in the woods on the hill. It's under a huge tree." Chapter 3. The Shooting. "Well, my darling," said Mr Fox, "what shall it be tonight?" "Oh, I think we'll have duck tonight," said Mrs Fox. "Bring us 2 fat ducks, if you please, one for you and me, and one for the children." "Duck it shall be," said Mr Fox. "Bunce's best." "Now, do be careful," said Mrs Fox. "My darling," said Mr Fox, "I can smell those goons a mile away. I can even smell one from the other. Boggis gives off a filthy stink of rotten chicken skins. Bunce reeks of goose livers. And as for Bean, the fumes of apple cider hang around him like poisonous gases." "Yes, but don't get careless," said Mrs Fox. "You know they'll be waiting for you, all 3 of them." "Don't you worry about me," said Mr Fox. "I'll see you later." There they are, chatting. But Mr Fox would not have been quite so cocky had he known exactly where the 3 farmers were waiting at that moment. They were just outside the entrance to the hole, each one crouching behind a tree with his gun loaded. And what is more, they'd chosen their positions very carefully, making sure that the wind was not blowing from behind them towards the fox's hole. In fact, it was blowing in the opposite direction. There was no chance of being smelled out. Mr Fox crept out into the darkness, through the dark tunnel to the mouth of his hole. He poked his long, handsome face out into the night air, and he sniffed once. He moved an inch or 2 forward and stopped, and he sniffed again. He was always especially careful when coming out from his hole. He inched forwards a little more. The front half of his body was now in the open. His black nose twitched from side to side, sniffing and sniffing for the scent of danger. He found none, and he was just about to go trotting forward into the woods when he heard, or he thought he heard, a tiny noise, a soft rustling sound, as though someone had moved a foot ever so gently through a patch of dry leaves. Mr Fox flattened his body against the ground, and he lay very still, his ears pricked. He waited a long time, but he heard nothing more. "It must have been a field mouse," he told himself, "or some other small animal." He crept a little further out of the hole, then further still. He was almost right out in the open now. He took a last careful look around. The wood was murky and very still. Somewhere in the sky the moon was shining. Just then his sharp night eyes caught a glint of something bright behind a tree not far away. It was a small silver speck of moonlight shining on a polished surface. Mr Fox lay still, staring at it. What on earth was it? Now it was moving. It was coming up and up. Great heavens! It was the barrel of a gun. Quick as a whip, Mr Fox jumped back into his hole, and at that same instant the entire wood seemed to explode around him. Bang, bang! Bang, bang! Bang, bang! The smoke from the 3 guns floated upward into the night air. Boggis and Bunce and Bean came out from behind their trees and walked towards the hole. "Did we get him?" said Bean. One of them shone a flashlight on the hole, and there on the ground, in the circle of light, half in and half out of the hole, lay the poor, tattered, blood-stained remains of a fox's tail. Bean picked it up. "We got the tail, but we missed the fox," he said, tossing the thing away. Dang and blast, said Boggis. We're shot too late. We should have let fly the moment he poked his head out. He won't be poking it out again in a hurry, Bunce said. Bean pulled a flashlight and a flask from his pocket and took a swig of cider. Then he said, It'll take 3 days at least before he gets hungry enough to come out again. I'm not sitting round here waiting for that. Let's dig him out. Ah, said Boggis, now you're talking sense. We can dig him out in a couple of hours. We know he's there. I reckon there's a whole family of them down the hole, Bunce said. Then we'll have the lot, said Bean. Get the shovels. 3 chapters read. They're just about to try and dig the fox out of their den. The next chapter, chapter 4, is called The Terrible Shovels. I'm getting rather worried for Mr Fox and his family. Hope you're going to join in and listen with that story again tomorrow, Year 2 children. I'm going to try and read every day during lockdown like I did last time. In the meantime, remember our school motto. If you see someone without a smile, give them one of yours and keep on smiling. Take care, everyone.